Hey, how are you? Welcome to another ESO build guide. I'm Dying Legacy and this is the Shade build, a stamina Nightblade for solo content. Packing strong damage and high AoE, you'll be tackling veteran arenas and dungeons quick and easy. This is a quick build guide. We'll be going over the race, attributes, Munda stones, food, potions, gear, skills, passives and champion point slottables. The info will be minimal, so I'll only be going over what's necessary. However, do feel free to comment below if you'd like a full detailed guide or if there's anything I could do better. With the intro covered, let's go over the Shade build. Starting with the race, it doesn't really matter what you use, it is an RPG after all. You play as you prefer, but if you're looking for suggestions, I would recommend either the Red Guard if you're looking for more sustain, the Khajiit for extra critical damage, or an Orc for extra weapon damage. For the attributes, we're putting 64 points into stamina, and for our Munda stone, when we're doing solo content, we're taking the Lover Munda stone for extra spell and physical penetration. When doing content as part of a group, we'll be taking the Thief Munda stone for extra critical rating. For our food, we are taking the Artaeum Takeaway Broth to increase our health recovery, max stamina and stamina recovery. You can pick these up at a guild vendor or make it yourself if you have the recipe. This can be rather expensive to get your hands on, in which case the cheaper option is the dubious Cameronian Throne. The stats are slightly lower and it doesn't give health recovery, but it's a very small difference and overall it doesn't matter which one you use. For our potions, we are using Essence of Weapon Power potions, which grants us Major Brutality, Major Savagery, Major Endurance, and restores stamina immediately. We'll be using these for those longer and tougher fights. We can grab these at a guild vendor or make them ourselves at an alchemy station. If you haven't got any on you at the time, you can always pop an Essence of Stamina instead. They will give us Major Endurance and restore some stamina immediately. They might not be as useful as Weapon Power potions, but they are better than nothing. And they do drop from almost every mob among Tamriel, so your bag will probably be full of them. Moving on to the gear now, we have the option to use a Maelstrom Greatsword and a Pale Order Ring on this build. They aren't necessary by any means, and we have options in their stead, which we'll go over first. We're using 7 medium armor pieces on this build, all with the Divine's trait and a Stamina enchant. For the jewellery, we're using the Bloodthirsty trait and weapon damage enchants. And for our weapons, we're using dual daggers on our front bar. Our main hand will be Nirnhoned with a poison enchant, and our offhand will be a sharpened with a fire enchant. For our back bar, we're taking a two-handed greatsword with the infused trait and a weapon damage enchant. Moving on to the sets themselves, starting with the body pieces, which are the chest, waist, hands, legs and the feet. Our first choice is a trial set. It's the Arms of Reliquin set. This set is gotten from Cloudrest, and on veteran difficulty you can get a perfected version, which adds extra stamina to the set. It's a minor increase compared to the unperfected version, so it doesn't matter what version you're using. The set itself gives us critical chance, minor slayer at all times, and our light and heavy attacks add a stacking damage over time effect to our targets that lasts for 5 seconds and stacks up to 10 times. If you haven't stepped into a trial or want to use something else, you can use Sogvin's Warband set instead, which is gotten in the DLC dungeon Frostvault. This set adds critical chance and offensive penetration, and when you deal critical damage, your critical chance will increase for 5 seconds and can stack for 10 times. At max stacks, you'll gain minor force. If you're looking for a little more healing, you could also go with the Briarheart set, which is gotten from Hrothgar Overland content, such as dells, world bosses and public dungeons. You can also pick it up at a guild vendor. Briarheart comes with critical chance and maximum stamina, and when you deal critical damage, your weapon and spell damage increases for 10 seconds, and during this proc, you'll heal when you do critical damage. For our weapons and jewellery, we are going with the Pillar of Nirn set, which is gotten from the DLC dungeon Falkreed Hold, which gives us max stamina, critical chance and weapon and spell damage. And when you deal damage, you'll deal bleed damage to enemies near you and causing them to take bleed damage for 10 seconds. For our monster sets, for our helm and shoulder slots, we can use the Bloodspawn set. The helm can be gotten from Spindle Clutch 2 on Veteran and the shoulders from the Undaunted vendors. This set adds stamina recovery, and when we take damage we have a chance to gain extra ultimate and to increase our resistances by 3601 for 5 seconds. Another good choice is the Slime Cross set from Wayrest Sewers 1. Again, the helm from Veteran difficulty and the shoulder from an Undaunted vendor. Slime Claw adds critical chance and it gives us minor berserk at all times. Now, for the Ring of the Pale Order, which is gotten from the Antiquity system. When using this, we'll heal for 20% of all the damage we do. We can't be healed by anyone but ourselves, and the healing we do decreases when we're in groups. The ring will take up a ring slot obviously, so we'll need to wear our jewellery set on either our shoulder or helm. The slot doesn't matter, we will lose our 2-set bonus from the monster set, but the Pale Order ring makes up for it. Stick with the Bloodspawn or the Slime Cross set for the one-piece bonuses regardless in these situations. Lastly is the Maelstrom two-handed sword, which is gotten from Maelstrom Arena, and we'll be using this in our back bar. There's a perfected version from veteran difficulty which adds extra offensive penetration. It doesn't matter which version we use, as we're more interested in the base effect itself, which is when dealing damage with critical charge we cause enemies to bleed over 7 seconds. And that covers the gear, and now we're going to move on to the skills, and starting with the front bar, we're using Relentless Focus, which is more from Grim Focus, which is found in the Assassination skill tree. This will increase our weapon and spell damage when doing a light or heavy attack up to 5 times. When we hit 5 stacks, it'll become Assassin's Scourge, which can be used for half its cost and deals immense disease damage, and if you're within melee range, it'll heal us. Next is Blood Crazed. You morph this from Twin Slashes and it's found in the Dual Wield skill line. This will deal bleed damage and cause the enemy to bleed for 10 seconds, and it heals us over its duration. We're also using Deadly Cloak, which is morphed from Blade Cloak and can be found in the Dual Wield skill line. This will cause us to gain major evasion for 10 seconds, and every 2 seconds we'll deal physical damage to the enemies around us. We're also using Surprise Attack, which is morphed from Veiled Strike and is found in the Shadow skill line. This slashes an enemy, dealing physical damage and applying the Sundered status effect. If you attack from the flank, you'll also knock them off balance. Next is Barbed Trap, morphed from Trap Beast, and can be found in the Fighter's Guild skill line. The trap deals bleed damage and causes the enemies to bleed for 18 seconds and grants you minor force. For the ultimate on the front bar, we are using Incapacitating Strike, morphed from Deathstroke, and can be found in the Assassination skill line. You'll deal disease damage to enemies and cause them to take 20% more damage for 6 seconds, and if you cast it while you have more than 120 ultimate, it will stun the enemy, and while slotted we also restore magic and stamina if we light or heavy attack an enemy with a negative effect on them. Next we'll move on to the back bar skills, and first up is Stampede. This is morphed from Critical Charge, which is found in the two-handed skill line. You'll charge at an enemy and deal physical damage to them, and also nearby enemies. This is always a critical strike, and you'll also leave an AoE under their feet for 15 seconds that also deals physical damage. Next is Dark Shade, which is morphed from Summon Shade in the Shadow skill line. You'll summon a shade version of yourself that attacks the enemy for 20 seconds, dealing magic damage, and occasionally doing AoE damage, and inflicting minor maim on enemies. We are also using Echoing Vigor, which is morphed from Vigor, which is found in the Assault skill line. This will heal us over 10 seconds. We're also using Razor Caltrops, which is morphed from Caltrops and is found in the Assault skill line. This is an AoE that deals physical damage to enemies standing in it over 10 seconds and also applies major breach to those enemies as well. Next is Carve, which is morphed from Cleave, which is found in the two-handed skill line. You'll deal bleed damage to enemies in front of you and cause them to bleed for 12 seconds, and hitting an enemy again will increase the duration up to a maximum of 30 seconds. This also gives us a damage shield. The ultimate on the back bar is the exact same as the front bar, which again is Incapacitating Strike, morphed from Deathstroke, and can be found in the Assassination skill line. And that covers the skills, so let's quickly move on to our passives, starting with our class passives. First up is the Assassination skill line. We want to take everything in here, which includes Master Assassin, Executioner, Pressure Points, and Hemorrhage. In the Shadow skill line, we'll also be taking everything. In here you'll find Refreshing Shadows, Shadow Barrier, Dark Vigor, and Dark Veil. And finally, in the Siphoning skill line, we are only taking the Catalyst passive because we're not using any siphoning skills to activate any other passives here. We are using Dual Daggers, so we'll take everything in the Dual Wield skill line. These are Slaughter, Dual Wield Expert, Control Fury, Ruffian, and Twin Blade and Blunt. Next is the two-handed skill line. Again, we'll take everything. This includes Forceful, Balance Blade, Follow Up, and Battle Rush. We are wearing full medium armor, so we'll take everything in the medium armor skill line too, which are Windwalker, Improved Sneak, Agility, and Athletics. Next up is the Guild passive, starting with the Fighter's Guild. In here we'll be taking Slayer, Banish the Wicked, and Skill Tracker. And next up is the Undaunted passives. In here we'll be taking Undaunted Command and Undaunted Metal. This next one is optional and can be found in the Assault skill line, and it is Continuous Attack. We only need 1 point in this to gain Major Gallop, we get nothing extra for adding a second point, so just stick with putting in 1. Moving on to the racial passives, these are specific to your race, so grab everything, have a quick read over them so you know what they do and understand what benefits and advantages you have, as every passive is different for every race. And lastly, one more optional passive which I would class as necessary, and it's medicinal use, which is found in the alchemy skill line. This causes our potions to last much longer and makes potions outlast their cooldown, so you can always have a potion active. And that covers the passives. And now onto the champion point slottables, beginning in the warfare tree. In here, I like to grab Fighting Finesse, Deadly Aim, Thaumaturge, and Master at Arms. And in the fitness tree skill line, we'll be taking Boundless Vitality, Fortified, Rejuvenation, and also Bloody Renewal. And lastly, in the craft skill line, it's very situational in here, so realistically you can take whatever you want or whatever you think suits your needs, but for myself when doing solo content, I like to grab Treasure Hunter, I also like to take Rationeer, Liquid Efficiency, and also Steed's Blessing. And that's everything for the champion slottables, and it covers the Shade build. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope this was helpful or gave you some ideas for your own builds, and if it did, why not like and subscribe, as I do a build once a week and hopefully they can help you out just as much. If you've any thoughts, suggestions, or just want to have a chat, comment below. I also stream on Twitch over at twitch.tv/dyinglegacy. We play a lot of ESO over there and do some variety content too, where I mostly swear and get trolled for getting lost all the time. Anywho, thanks again, guys. You've been fantastic. I've been Dying Legacy, and until next time, stay awesome. And Christ on a bike, is this a quick video.